Konnichiwa.
It's history in the making, and we want you to be part of it.
That's a given.
We're talking about people who are changing the game.
You guys have run a tight ship here. Oh my gosh.
The rock star sitting here.
I can't even describe it.
Talking about actual business.
Two beings at the top of their professions.
Started.
Lightning quick movements.
Changing the
Rock star sitting here. It's just started.
Welcome back, my friends, to the Real Value Podcast, the podcast about real estate lending, appraising life success, and, well, how it all fits together. Thank you for joining me again on this journey of evolution and revolution in the real estate and the appraisal business. Believe it or not, the Real Value Podcast is one of the things I look forward to the most in my week, and I think I live a pretty exciting life. I mean, I play hockey, I do martial arts, I travel, work out, hike, camp, backpack, zip line, skydive, parasail, shark dive. I shoot guns, and I just generally try to live each day to the fullest. And I can still honestly say that the Real Value Podcast is at the top of the list for things I look forward to each week. Now, the main reason that I look forward to doing the show, of course, is you. The feedback that I get each week, the questions, the comments, the support I receive after each episode, quite honestly, it feeds me. It makes me feel like I'm having some kind of impact, which was the main reason for starting the Real Value Podcast. And however small that impact might be, I feel like I am contributing something to the industry, maybe to a few of your businesses, and maybe even positively impacting a few lives along the way, which again was part of the goal. So with that, I'd like to say a huge thanks, as always, and also a big congratulations to you for growing along with me on this journey. Today, we're going to talk about some important differences and distinctions between what it means to be an entrepreneur and what it means to simply be what we're going to call, and you'll hear the word a lot through this episode, a proprietor, or simply an owner of a business. Now, if you were to look up proprietor, it would probably be synonymous with business owner, and maybe you'd even see the words entrepreneur thrown in there. I said something in a prior episode that triggered a few people, and it generated a few comments regarding whether or not you, as an appraiser, are actually considered by some as anything more than an independent service provider or salesperson. I think the way I said it is that some accountants and some real business owners with assets and equity and a saleable business, wouldn't consider our business an actual business because there's no equity and it relies on the chief appraiser, the person signing the reports, and the licensed individual getting the orders for the day-to-day operation and the cash flow. Again, I said that real businesses don't consider outside salespeople, independent salespeople, independent service businesses like ours to really be legitimate businesses, because an appraisal business, as we're fond of referring to ourselves, is nothing more than, again, our license number, our name, some goodwill we've built in the business, maybe a spot on an AMC or a bank rotation list, and of course, our experience, our insight, our knowledge. Yes, some of us have multiple appraisers working for us or with us. Some of us have actual brick and mortar offices. We may have staff, virtual or otherwise. By the way, I'm going to have a whole episode on how our office runs, which is almost completely virtual. I'm not a fan anymore of brick and mortar offices, but I'll talk about that. Been there, done that, and we run a very successful, decent-sized business, and it's almost all virtual. And again, some of you may have brick and mortar locations with equipment, computers, whatnot. Doesn't necessarily make you a business. Legitimate business. It means you're operating some type of business, but we're going to talk about that. Most appraisal businesses, as you well know, live and die on the main person who started the business or the service of appraising. We're a service industry, I would say. And of course, if that person stops signing the reports, stops doing observations, stops training people, stops bringing in the business, so to speak, that appraisal business starts to wither on the vine. Now, I didn't say that it automatically dies. I've worked for big appraisal businesses where the chief appraiser, the main dude who started it all, although we used his signature, we had many, many appraisers using his signature. He would review files and he would train to some degree, but there were many trainee appraisers using his signature, and he was doing bigger and better things. Not that I necessarily agree with that way of doing things, but I get it. The main guy could disappear for a month at a time and the business would not wither, but it would begin to without that leadership. And that's my point. Without that person, an appraisal business tends to wither on the vine. It could take a long time, but it starts to. As I've also recognized, before you start emailing me with all the instances of appraisal businesses like the ones I just mentioned, ones that possibly have been sold, or even how big your company is and how efficiently it runs without you, I get it. I totally get it. But those are in the extreme minority in this industry. I helped build one of those two, and I fully understand that it can be done, and I understand how it can be done and the steps that need to be taken. But that's not the majority of the industry. So I'm speaking to the majority of the industry, or at least trying to, and that's what we're referring to. And an important distinction between that kind of business, one that runs itself to some degree, doesn't necessarily rely on the chief appraiser's day-to-day interactions, may have some equity built up, may have a saleable asset, again, few and far between, is that business was built by a particular type of person or persons with a particular mindset. The type of business that doesn't require the chief muckety-muck's day-to-day interaction, the type of business that may have some kind of equity built up, the type of business who potentially has systems in place, they have a 3-ring binder, they have a franchise system, and they have a potential saleable asset, required a particular type of person or persons with a particular mindset. And that mindset, which is what this whole episode is about, is called the entrepreneurial mindset. And it's one of the things that can set one individual or business apart from another. Now, you could have 2 appraisers who came up under the same mentor, learned the same things, shared the same practices and report comments, the same adjustment methods, the same extraction, whatever it might be. Yet one goes off and builds a saleable company, and the other has to work each day to bring in the cash. One schedules them up, completes them, and it's rinse, repeat each day until retirement, death, extinction, or a conscious choice to leave the industry, which we hear a lot about today. Now, I'm not, by the way, making a qualitative judgment regarding either one. I'm not saying one is better than the other. This episode is about getting you to ask questions and deciding which one you thought you were, when maybe it was the other one, which one you want to be, and we'll ask all those questions. And if you want to become one over the other, the questions you need to ask to get there. So if you are the latter, and you think that I'm somehow judging that as less important or valuable, I'm not. If you are the proprietor and not the entrepreneur, I'm not making a value judgment. As I mentioned earlier, this is the vast majority of appraisers in our industry, and somehow many of us are doing quite well. So it really would be silly of me to judge this as being a bad thing or somehow less than in some respect. Not making a qualitative judgment on whether or not being a mere proprietor of a business is better than being an entrepreneur. And I'm going to go over the differences, so hang in there with me. I have, by the way, been on both sides of that fence, and I've also been somewhere in between, and I can speak to the pros and cons of all of them. Different people, as you probably know, are suited to different things, and the appraisal business, I'm using air quotes when I say the word business, the appraisal business, an appraisal business can be a great business for somebody with skills to manage and lead others. And it can also be a great business for those who like to work alone, those who like to work from home, those who want to work in their PJs, whatever it may be. And in fact, it's one of the few businesses that one can get into, or at least could when I was starting out, without a college degree. And I understand the standards have changed now, and some states have done away with that. Yet potentially make an income greater than most with college degrees. I'll say that again. Since this podcast is generally about positivity, or at least how to think positively, before you start to get negative about the industry, this is one of the few industries that somebody can get into without a college degree, yet make an income many times greater than many people out there with college degrees. It's an industry that can allow you to set your own schedule to a large degree. Doesn't mean you don't have a boss. You could be your own boss, and you could work for a real jerk. But you're still working for yourself in many cases. You can set your own schedule, no cap on your income, extreme freedom, somewhat location independent. I've finished many, many appraisals from restaurants and coffee shops. And the ratio of income to time requirement, as well as upfront investment, equipment, fees, dues, things like that. The ratio of income to those things is vastly out of proportion when compared with most hourly or even highly salaried careers and businesses that have to start up. For all the naysayers, the doom and gloomers, and the glass half empty folks in our industry, I would challenge you to go find all of those qualities, all of the qualities that can be found in the appraisal business in any other business. And if you can, I'll ask you a question. Why aren't you doing that? If you can find that, if it can meet all those parameters, why aren't you doing it? And the answer, of course, is because that opportunity doesn't really exist, or it's because you're simply too scared to make the move. I get that. Many people want to go to the second base, but they don't want to take their foot off first. If it's that you're too old, you have too much invested in this already, that the opportunity isn't there for you, well then, you've just contradicted yourself and you've made your answer null and void. We've come full circle back to my challenge, in which case you'd have to change your answer and come up with a new business opportunity. Because if you're going to say to me that you're just too old, I have too much invested, whatever, well, then that's not really an opportunity. You'd have to come up with a new business opportunity that is available to you, that gives you the freedom, the income, and the opportunity that appraising real estate does. And feel free, go ahead and dance in that circle as long as you need to decide if it's time to move on from this business or take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and decide if you're an entrepreneur or simply the proprietor of ABC Appraisal. Now, why do I bring this topic up? Well, I bring it up for the same reason that I bring up all the topics almost every single week, and I usually mention something about the naysayers and the gloom and doomers, is because our industry is filled with them. And I am a big fan of helping people on their way when they feel the need to go. If I can help you on your way to your next career, which may save your life, let me be the one that helps you do that. If you can't find anything positive in this industry, go. Please, for the rest of us, go. If you think there's better opportunities out there, go. But if there's not, then let's make the best of it. And let's decide if you want to continue operating the way you've always operated, or if you want to operate with an entrepreneurial mindset and potentially take advantage of amazing opportunities in this industry. The challenge that I just mentioned, by the way, that business challenge, it speaks to the principle we utilize every day in our businesses called the principle of substitution. In a real business, it's referred to as the cost of capital, which is the return an investor expects to earn on his or her investment. And if that return isn't met, the investor would likely make an alternative choice of investment, or they are destroying their principal, the amount that they invested, and they end up taking a loss, right? That's in essence what we do with every minute of our day. We should be anyway. And there's another podcast called Habit that I talk about the highest and best investment of our time. You should be asking every minute of every day, or at least every blocked chunks of time throughout your day, if it is the highest and best investment of your time. Because based on the principle of substitution, you should be asking, could I be doing something better with my time to net me more A, B, C, or D? And it doesn't necessarily have to be profit. You could be resting and relaxing, which may be exactly what you need to do in that block of time, which will net you more energy, motivation, inspiration, whatever it may be. But you should always be thinking through, what else could I be using this time for? And of course, investors ask that question all the time. Where else could I be using this capital to net the return that I'm looking to return? And of course, we talk about it in appraisals all the time. Would a buyer consider a comparable sale a suitable alternative? If they had X dollars to spend on a house, which we assume they're spending on the subject property, aren't the comparable sales based on the principle of substitution? What else could they invest their money in and get a similar or better return? And investors ask this all the time. If I can't get my required return out of this investment, what alternative choice of investment could I use that won't destroy my capital, my principal, so that I don't have to take a loss. Investors look at opportunities to make a return on their capital invested, and they will typically choose the one that will meet their demands for return relative to the risk they're willing to endure. We do the same thing on a daily basis. Relative to the risk of being in this business and asking that question, what else could I be doing that's not as risky as what I do, yet make the same return? And if there's more risk, you would, of course, expect more return. We look to the market when comparing the subject property to the comparable sales. And again, we ask that same question. Why would somebody pay X for the subject if they can or could have, just a short time ago, paid less for something similar in the same market and for, again, the same risk? So how does that apply to being an entrepreneur or a proprietor? What is the difference between an entrepreneur and a proprietor? Well, the difference is profound, my friends. And I have heard for many years now and from a variety of industries that I've both worked in, coached in, built businesses in, that the term entrepreneur gets tossed out by business owners of all kinds, from franchise owners, real estate brokers, lenders, truck drivers, mechanical contractors, martial artists, and of course, appraisers. However, what many of those who throw that term out or threw that term out there thought they were referring to when they called themselves entrepreneurs was really just the proprietor of something loosely called a business. Now, I'm not here to argue the definition or get into a semantic dance about the word business. What I would like to point out, however, is the difference between being an entrepreneur and being just a proprietor or a supervisor, let's say, of what you think is an entrepreneurial venture. And I'm going to talk about why this matters. Now, if you've never heard of the great Peter Drucker, I would like to suggest that you start Googling Peter Drucker. D-R, that's D as in David, R-U-C-K-E-R. Become familiar with his writings and his business philosophy. Now, much of what Peter Drucker wrote on was management. He left us at the ripe old age of 95 back in, I want to say 2005. But he had a massive, massive impact on the business world and, again, the field of management specifically. He was a management guru. But what Drucker gave us was a way to look at businesses, a way to look at creating them, running them, developing them, building them, and managing them, and then a new way to value their impact and their true profitability in something other than just straight line accounting terms, which many of us, of course, do. We look at our business and we go, well, I spent this, I made this, I deduct my costs, and yes, I either made money or I didn't. Those are straight line accounting terms. And Drucker taught us about a concept called EVA, or economic value added, which is a way to look at what a business is truly creating in the market. Now, without going into all of the accounting minutia of EVA, or economic value added, without going into the model of valuing a business based on EVA, what it essentially says is that unless or until a business is adding more to the market than what it is taking from the market to cover its cost, including the cost of capital, regardless of whether or not it appears to be making a profit, it is actually destroying wealth, not creating it. Now, let me say that again. Again, there's a lot more to EVA when you get into studying economic value added, at least in a manufacturing business or from a management and accounting standpoint. There's more to it. I'm simplifying it and dumbing it down. But essentially what it says is that unless or until your business is adding more to the market than what it's taking from the market to cover your costs, including your investment, and the cost of capital, any loans and things like that, regardless of whether or not it appears to be making a profit, meaning you look at the end of the year and you go, yep, we earned more than what we spent. But if you can't calculate it in terms of you actually added more to the market than what you took, you're actually destroying your principal, your capital, and your wealth. You're not creating it. And this is a huge, huge concept. And as I just mentioned, it can get complicated because, again, Drucker was hired by large, huge manufacturing organizations, and they were always looking at quality, efficiency, leadership, accounting, and a variety of other topics so that they could exist profitably long into the future, an ongoing concern, they would call it. And some of the things that are valued and measured in a manufacturing system, of course, would have little to no comparison or equivalent in an appraisal or real estate business. However, the ideas and the concepts, once you understand them, can be applied across the board to any and every business, and that's what this episode is about. I've said before in other podcasts, in other episodes, this is the value I think I bring, is that I'm always looking outside of our industry. I've been a member of, I've been a business owner, I've started businesses, I've worked in other businesses over my 30-plus year career as an adult, and I take lessons from all those industries. And then as a business mentor and mastermind group leader and entrepreneur myself, I'm always looking outside the industry to find best practices to bring back into the industries that I'm coaching in, working in, and run businesses in. And I think it's the only way, one of the only ways to truly add value, because there's lots and lots and lots of information out there. Not everything applies, but if you look at the hotel industry, if you look at how Toyota manufactures cars, if you look at some of the systems that are being implemented in some of the biggest corporations around the world, you will be able to find templates. You'll be able to find nuggets of wisdom and systems that could be applied into your business. In essence, I'm hoping to get you thinking about what you're really doing in this business, thinking about what you're doing in the business that you're in. And I know there are several different business models out there in the appraisal business, and all of you operate a little bit differently maybe. But what kind of business are you operating? And more importantly, what kind of business do you want to be running? I'll say it again. What kind of business are you operating? What kind of business are you running? But more importantly, what kind of business do you want to be running? Now, one of the first steps in moving in that direction is asking a series of questions. 3 of the questions that Peter Drucker was famous for teaching his management and leadership students were these. What is our business today? This is what he would get their people to ask. And every manager in every meeting subsequent to that, when they went through Drucker's training, they would lead their meetings this way. They would ask the first question, what is our business today? 2, what will be our business? Meaning what's going to be our business down the line, tomorrow, a week, a month, a year, 3 years, whatever. And 3, what should be our business? Again, what's our business today? What will be our business? And what should be our business? Now, since most appraisal businesses are 1 to 3 person operations, the owner and the chief appraiser is typically the one who's responsible for asking these questions, or at least teaching his or her people to be asking these questions on a regular basis. And Drucker was, of course, famous for a bunch of different ideas and sayings, but one that has made a serious impact on the way that I've looked at business for the past 20 years or so is something else that Peter Drucker said, which is that the purpose of a business is to create a customer. Let that sink in. In fact, he said that it's really the only purpose of a business. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. Businesses do a variety of things. Some make stuff. Some, of course, sell stuff. Some provide services, like an appraisal business. Some do a combination. They make and sell things and provide service. However, is that the purpose of their business? And Drucker, of course, would argue no. The purpose of all businesses is to create a customer. And the way they do that is by constant review of what it is they do to create that customer. What they should be doing, of course, how they are taking care of the customer, the value of the product and the service in their marketplace, and how to continuously be looking into the future to see what business will be and what it should be. I want you to keep that in mind, that if you start thinking about your business from that standpoint, that the purpose of your business is to create a customer, would you look at your business differently? When you think of your business in that way and from those perspectives, I believe your paradigms start to shift. I've taught this for years, and I've seen the mindsets, the eyes, the ears, the body language, the bottom line, the accounting of many businesses change. And one of the big problems in the appraisal, the real estate, and the lending industries is that many of the people producing the product or the service tend to think like employees of a bigger business. And by that, I mean they tend to think it the job of somebody else to innovate, to think differently, to question value and the process. And by value, of course, I don't mean opinions of value. I mean the value that an appraiser, a realtor, a loan originator adds to the overall market. And I can tell you with 100% confidence that almost every single one of them thinks about one thing and one thing only: profit. Or, said a better way, a paycheck. Appraisers, I can tell you, count almost everything in terms of appraisal dollars. Lenders and realtors count everything in terms of commission check dollars. Appraisers buy things based on the number of appraisals it will take to pay for a thing, and realtors, of course, buy based on the number of commission checks it will take. A computer is 2 appraisals. A nice disto laser is 1.5 appraisals. And a reliable car is, 50 appraisals. That's how we value things. And that kind of thinking, of course, is very limited and limiting. It puts you in a position of simply taking from the market and thinking you're making some kind of profit if you cover your cost of doing business and you put a little in the bank at the end of each week, each month, each year. Forget about whether or not you actually lose money at the end of the year. I'm talking about just those who think they're making money. But the big problem is those, of course, who think that they're profitable at the end of the year because they have some left over. The extra money actually lies to them and makes them think they've actually created something. They've done something right. It makes them believe that they're doing something right, and why break it if it ain't broke, as the saying goes. Now, if they would start to think like an investor, they'd start applying the principle of substitution and highest and best use of their time, their energy, their capital, their resources, and they would likely look at things a little bit differently. Anybody can build their bank account in any one of those businesses. You can make really good money in the appraisal, in the real estate, and in the lending businesses if you're doing the right things, saying the right things, networking, whatever it may be. And especially if all you're looking for is to make an income. And if an income is all you need and you're good, perfect. And there are many, many appraisers out there that I'm speaking to. They're making a decent income. They're good. They're good. There's nothing they need to do. Perfect. Whether they're working for somebody else or on their own. They're like, I pay my bills each month, Blaine. I'm good. Okay, good. Just getting you to ask questions. Do what you need to do to get licensed, get mentored up, get on some lists, and off you go. You make what the market thinks you're worth for as long as the market needs you. And this is what people like Mr. Drucker and one of my other mentors, Jay Abraham, would refer to as merely proprietors of a business and not entrepreneurs. A proprietor is somebody who adds nothing meaningful to a particular business category. They merely siphon off market capital and wealth, money, income from the market without necessarily creating any value and offering that back to the market. This is the EVA, or economic value added concept. It's again, a simplified version. Anyway, a restaurant, an auto shop, a grocery store, a realtor, a lender, an appraiser that does things the same way everybody else does it, and the same way that thousands that have come before them did it, is adding very little, if any, real value to the market. They're simply doing things the way they've always been done, more or less, and taking, let's say, extracting an income from the market. Now, again, this may not be a big deal to you. You may say, I don't give a shit what you call me as long as I'm getting paid, Blaine. To which, again, I'd say, cool, carry on, man. You're good. But to those that call themselves entrepreneurs and legitimate business people looking to be around for a long time and evolving with the market, which is changing, as we know, and the industry, as well as evolving with the needs of your customers, you do well to examine the difference and the requirements of calling and thinking of oneself as an entrepreneur versus merely a proprietor of a business that, as we discussed in other episodes, is seen typically as a commodity by most users. And a commodity, as you well know, if you listen to that episode, is differentiated primarily on price. Just as the typical burger joint in any town is seen as a burger joint like all the others, aside from maybe its convenient location. The owners of the typical business are hoping to extract money, wealth, capital, income from an existing market. They're looking to extract more dollars than what it costs to operate and meet their needs for income or some kind of return on their investment. Now, of course, I use that term return on their investment, ROI, very loosely because many business owners go into business really with no expectation of return on investment. They're just looking to make income. They're looking to pay their bills and have something left over, lead a particular lifestyle, drive a particular car, and they don't really look on whether or not they're destroying wealth, destroying capital based on highest and best investment use or principle of substitution, like a good investor. But what they're really hoping for is that the market will expand to take advantage of whatever it is they're offering, but they offer nothing special in return. And they offer nothing in the way of a better experience. They don't innovate. They don't redefine the concept or the service. It's merely another appraiser, another realtor, another loan originator, and another burger joint in the market. Now, conversely, a real entrepreneur runs a business that is committed to continuous innovation of how they operate, how they offer their services and products to the market, how they conduct their business, how they train and mentor their people, and the experience the customer or the client receives from the interaction with their business. A proprietor sets up a nondescript, let's call it a generic business, ABC appraisal, that simply extracts an oxygen molecule, if you will, from the air and cash from the market. But it contributes nothing beyond their own self-serving nature of the product or service that they're offering. Hey, I do appraisals, so use me. Okay, well, how are you different? I'm not, or I'm $1 cheaper, or I'm a day faster. Okay, cool, we'll use you. But as soon as somebody comes along that beats that, we're going to use them. So a proprietor extracts oxygen from the market, cash from the market, but they contribute nothing beyond their own self-serving interest in getting paid. An entrepreneur, conversely, thinks through every step of the offering and every step of the service and all of the potential pain points in the process to make the product, the service, and the experience different than the burger joint down the street or the appraisal company down the street. In essence, they're always asking, what business are we in? What business should we be in? And what business do we want to be in? And they're constantly reconciling those questions. Keep in mind, when you ask questions, you may not always get an answer, but asking the question puts it out there in the universe. And the answer will come. Sometimes you just have to throw a question out there and then go on with your day. But if you constantly ask the questions, what business are we in? What business should we be in? And what business do we want to be in? The answers will flow to you eventually. The proprietor of a business merely does what has always been done with no effort to create a new satisfaction, a new experience, or new consumer demand for their product or their service. All they do is hope to tap into existing demand and then, of course, hope that demand expands. They hope to get a couple of AMCs, a couple of local banks, a couple of realtors, and then they hope that expands, meaning they're trying to tap into existing demand and then that hope that the market expands to give them more. And we see this every day in the market, in every market. Appraisers complaining about the lack of business, the lack of clients, the proliferation of AMCs, the decreasing of fees, and a host of other issues related to the industry. And as I've stated several times before, many of these are very real issues for appraisers. And of course, they are signposts for the industry. I don't mean to minimize any of those. But entrepreneurs tend to see all of the things as signposts, and then they look for opportunity that may exist. They look for opportunity that may exist within the change. Whether an opportunity exists now, or, and this is an important point to understand, whether an opportunity needs to be created. A proprietor, of course, will simply complain and they'll slowly wither away, or they'll willingly exit the industry on a sour note. We see that on a daily basis. And by the way, as I mentioned at the first part, I'm okay with that. If you're just taking oxygen out of the market, you're adding nothing in return, I'm okay. Go. It might be time to go. And again, it may save your life. Find something you enjoy doing. The equivalent in my analogies would be the burger joint down the street closes down because there aren't enough customers in that market to continue extracting burger money from. The burger joint didn't do anything special. They did nothing different. They didn't innovate enough for the market to say, hey, we'll frequent your burger joint over the one that's 3 blocks or a mile away. You see, entrepreneurs create. They create new things. They create new experiences. They create new levels of satisfaction for their clients and customers. They're more exciting. They're better marketers. They're better communicators. They're more desired and desirable in the market. And most importantly, they add some value back to the market instead of just taking from the market. How often do you ask yourself, what value are we actually adding to our market? And if you say, well, I'm just the best appraiser in the market, or I just pump out good appraisals, sorry, not good enough. Entrepreneurs think differently. And based on the way they think, they find ways to improve, again, to innovate, to redefine, and to shape the experience for the end user so as to add value and thus separate themselves from the rest of the market. It's not good enough to just tell the market that you're better or that you've been doing this for 30 years. If you actually are better, by the way, because it's about recognizing that you have to actually be different before the market can accept it as true. And keep in mind, markets don't exist in a vacuum. They're always changing. This is one of the arguments against worrying so much, at least today, on big data, is because the data is always changing. It's fluid. Conditions of homes change. Conditions of neighborhoods change and market conditions change. I'm not saying don't worry long-term about big data, but it's one of the arguments against being so concerned at this moment is because nothing is static. It's always changing. It's not good enough to just yell to the market, hey, I'm better. You have to add something. You have to be different. You have to innovate. You have to make the experience better so that you're not extracting more than what you're giving back. When you actually innovate and you redefine the experience, the customer and the client do the marketing for you. I talked about this in another episode, the push-pull method. Either you're pushing your marketing onto your market. These could be mailers. It could be you yelling at people, hey, I'm the best appraiser around. And you're hoping that they'll bite on your offer, or you create so much value in your market that the market actually demands you. This is called pull marketing. There's pushing your marketing onto them, trying to get your name out there, SEO, getting people, your website to pop up in Google above your competitors. And then there's also creating so much value in the market that your clients and customers want to pull you into a transaction. It's one of the big differences between a proprietor of a business and a real entrepreneur. One of them does what has always been done and is, of course, subject to the whims of the market, where the other is always seeking to change the game, renew the vision, redefine the marketplace, and they seek to add value to their offering beyond what it costs. Now, of course, I get it. You can't necessarily change an appraisal. You can change what you write. You can change how you extract adjustments from the mark, whatever it might be. You can be more accurate than the guy down the street. But I can tell you from experience that very few customers get this nor value it. As you well know, they want a number. So redefining your market, creating new markets, new customers, new clients, new products, new services, and new experiences is one way to change the game, renew the vision, and redefine the marketplace. When you become the entrepreneur in your market, you in essence rehire yourself by creating new markets. You wake up in the morning, you go, I'm going to hire myself. How can I do that? Well, you can't make up houses to appraise, so you have to go out and create new markets. You have to create new customers, new clients, new products, new ways of delivering the experience. And in essence, you will take charge of hiring yourself. And at the end of the day, my friends, this is all just an exercise. It's all an exercise to begin asking yourself, which one are you currently? Are you a proprietor? Are you an entrepreneur? Then ask yourself, which one would you like to be? And when you get that answer, move on to the next, which is, which one should you be? And again, you may come to the conclusion that you are quite happy to extract an income from the market doing what you've always done, and that's just fine. No judgment. There are many appraisers, many realtors, many lenders, and many burger joints doing just fine, and they're happy with what their business model affords them in terms of lifestyle and income. I totally get it. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The point of the exercise, however, and the point of the questions are simply to create some honesty in your self-assessment of your business. What is it and what it isn't? And if you've been telling yourself and you tell others that you're an entrepreneur and you run a successful appraisal business, but the bulk of your business comes from, say, AMCs, well, it may be time to reassess because you are what Peter Drucker would simply call a proprietor of a business, doing what thousands have done before you, and you're adding nothing to the market. Now, you may not think so. I get it. You might say, no, Blaine, I add to my market just fine. I produce good appraisal reports and I add to my market. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're not different, if you're doing the same thing that every other appraiser is doing, you're not redefining your market or innovating, you're adding nothing to the market. You're only taking income. My appraisal costs X dollars. You pay me. I'll get it done. Boom. It's in the file. Either the loan either gets closed or it doesn't. You're going to pay me either way. You've extracted from the market. You've added nothing to the market. The entrepreneur, on the other hand, is always looking for ways to add value to the market. They're always looking for ways to systematize their business, to extract more time, more efficiency from their dollar. They're always looking to build some kind of equity and, of course, get paid based on the value that they create in the market. Sometimes they have to create enormous value first before they start to see that cash flow or that income. A proprietor asks, of course, where's my next deal coming from? Hey, AMC, you're a little slow right now. I notice you aren't sending me any deals. Or an entrepreneur asks, will they miss me when I'm gone? Let me say that again. The proprietor asks, where's my next deal coming from? And an entrepreneur asks, will they miss me when I'm gone? And if you can honestly say that your clients and customers will miss you when you're not there providing what it is you provide, then you've done something right. You're doing something right. Build on that. Develop a business that will not only be missed if it was no longer around, but one whose return would be demanded by the market should it ever disappear. Don't be replaceable by yet another proprietor offering the same thing or better. And isn't that one of the fears that we all have? That they're dumbing down the standards, that they're inviting in a flood of new appraisers. They've changed some of the standards. They've lowered the bar. And our future, of course, is filled with potentially a lot of newer, more poorly trained, or at least less trained appraisers in the market. Forget about whether or not they can get business right away. We all know that there's a lot of requirements that, 2 to 3 years by most banks, but there are other products out there that they can be doing. You have to ask, am I replaceable by another proprietor who jumps into my market doing the same thing that I'm doing, but better? And by better, by the way, get out of your own head. You may have a definition of better. Oh, I do a better appraisal than this guy down the street. Well, better is defined by the market. Better is defined by your client. They determine if you're better or not. One of the big problems our industry has is our egos. I've talked about this in many episodes. With your ego, you tend to define the words for the market. Like better, best. I'm the best appraiser. I deliver a better appraisal product. And many of your clients, i.e. the market, shakes their head and goes, yeah, I don't really give a shit, man. I need it fast. I need it to pass through CU, collateral underwriter. I need it to go off with no red flags. I don't care what happens down the line. Now, we care, of course, but that just means we don't get to define the terms better, best, good even. We need to know what they determine or how they define those words. So ask yourselves, my friends, do you have a business that will not only be missed if it wasn't around anymore, but a business that would be demanded by the market to return should you go away? Meaning, will they miss me when I'm gone? Don't be replaceable by somebody who does it the way thousands have done it before. As always, my friends, I want to thank you for investing your most valuable currency with me, and that is, of course, your time. I will always do my best to try to return some kind of value for your investment of time with me, but ultimately, as we all know, it's up to you as to what you do with the information and the questions. And I implore you, if you were sitting with me here in my office, I would be demanding that you write these questions down and that I would go around the room one by one and ask for your honest answer. What business are you in? What do you want to be in? What should you be in? I want an answer. Well, you're not in the room with me, so all I can do is implore you. If you demand more from your business, write these questions down. I know from experience that one question can change the course of one's life and business. And again, I implore you to begin asking more questions, asking better questions, and focusing on the things that will ultimately bring you to the place you think you should be. As far as we all know, we only get one life to live. Even if we have more lives, we won't know it when we're living them. So treat this one as your one and only. Do what you were meant to do and do it with all you've got. That is it for me this week, my friends. But before I go, of course, I would like to wish Mark Skapinitz, Lori Noble, Phil Crawford, and everybody else who has had a hand in making the Appraiser Fest a real thing, a huge congratulations for even getting to this point. The festival, the Appraiser Fest, is kicking off tomorrow, November 1st, I believe. And of course, everybody here at the Real Value Studios and the Value Syndicate wishes you all the best for an awesome inaugural Appraiser Fest and much success on future fests. In our minds here at the studios, you've already succeeded just in pulling it off. I've mentioned in the past episodes, I've put on big seminars before in the martial arts and mechanical contracting fields, and they are huge, huge undertakings. They are a huge risk, and they cost a lot in terms of capital and resources. So as far as I'm concerned, you're already successful. Just in pulling it off. Of course, everybody traveling to Appraiser Fest in San Antonio this weekend, blessings for safe travels. Have your pens and your talking pads ready to take tons and tons of notes, learn lots, get motivated to make a difference in the world, and of course, add some value along the way. Thanks again. And as Gandhi purportedly said, I say purportedly because we never know if they were really the person who said it, but as he purportedly said, be the change you wish to see in the world. A big fist bump to all of you, my friends, and we'll fist bump again next week. I'm out.